Diamond Painting Addicts, and welcome back to Diamond Painting Anonymous. I'm Daphne, and it might look like you're here for a whip and chat, which you sort of are, but this is a different sort of video. This is a topic that I have been considering probably for the last maybe 7 or 8 months, and about how I wanted to approach it, how I wanted to cover it. Today I'm going to do that. And what I'm going to be talking about today is 5 tips that I have started using to deal with my crafting burnout. So before I get into all of that, what led up to this and the tips that I found for dealing with it, let me zoom in. I'm going to be working on my Bella Art Bubble Girl just so that there's something on the screen while I'm talking to you all. So let me zoom in and I will be right back. Okay, so dealing with burnout. How did I get here? Well, as you know, if you follow the channel, I have had a lot going on for the last 7 to 8 months. My husband and I put our house on the market. We sold our house. We moved to Canada. We've been living in a rental, searching for a new house to purchase. We've had to do all of the things that go along with moving to a new country, and that is changing driver's licenses and all that sort of thing. Before we moved, we were busy painting, packing, repairing, all of those things. And so for all of that time, because we had so much going on, diamond painting and the channel, while something I wanted to do and something I enjoyed, just felt like something I had to do rather than something I wanted to do. And it's a bit like turning your crafting into, or your hobby into a business, which a lot of people will tell you don't do because it ruins the joy of the hobby. I don't think it was turning it into a business. It was just the fact that we had so much going on. And because we had so much going on, I was not at my best. I was not getting enough sleep. I was not eating well. I was not exercising the way that I had been before. I was not spending time doing other things. Everything just kind of got concentrated around the move, the house sale, all of the processes that needed to go along with that. So because we had so many things going on, I just found myself with, I don't want to say I had less time to diamond paint, but it was not as much of a focus. And so what happened was I got in this vicious circle of, it became this, we need to paint, we need to do this, we need to do that, I'll diamond paint later. And then when I would go to diamond paint, oh my gosh, I haven't diamond painted in 2 or 3 days, I'm so behind. And I would end up having these marathon sessions where I'm diamond painting 8-9 hours at a time. Sometimes that can be enjoyable if you're really enjoying working on a project, but when you're doing it to try and meet some sort of deadline, even if it's a self-imposed deadline, which mine were, it just sucks a lot of the enjoyment out of it for you. And so, like I said, I found myself in this vicious cycle of not doing it and then feeling guilty that I wasn't doing it, and then spending too much time working on diamond paintings, and then feeling guilty that I was spending that time on diamond painting instead of spending it on other things. And when I spent the time on other things, feeling guilty that I wasn't spending the time on diamond painting. So yeah, it just got to be this vicious circle. And I knew that I was getting burnt out, but I just convinced myself that once we sell the house, things will be better. Once we move, things will be better. Once we get into the rental, things will be better. And while that was somewhat true, it still didn't really get rid of the burnout. So I went to the internet and started searching for information. How do you deal with this? Not just burnout when it comes to crafting, but other things as well. After reading through a bunch of different articles, I kind of picked out some things that I decided would be helpful to me. And again, I'm going to preface all these with, these are things that work for me. They may or may not work for you. Take what works for you and use it. If there's something that you know won't work for you, feel free to ignore it. Everybody is not the same. We all work differently. But if you've been feeling burnt out, maybe one of these things will help. Maybe they all will, I don't know. So the first tip that I have instituted is to schedule breaks when I'm crafting. I am very bad about doing those marathon sessions like I talked about. If hubby was watching a football game, or if it was a Sunday and there were games on all day, while hubby was watching football, I would diamond paint all day. Partly as a way to get caught up because I probably had been behind on something, but also, even if I wasn't behind, as a way to kind of get ahead so that if I had a day where I didn't feel like working or whatever, I wouldn't be behind. And what I discovered was that's not good for me. Our bodies are not made to sit all the time. You need to get up, you need to move around, even if it's just a short 5-minute break. I especially find that I need breaks for my eyes. My eyeballs are not as young as they used to be, and after working on a diamond painting where I am very up close and personal with the canvas and things are very close to my face, you're looking at things very close to you, your eyeballs need that break, or at least mine do, to look at some things far away. Whether that's a short break where I get up and make myself some tea, whether that's a short break where I just get up and stand up and stretch for a few minutes. If I have to set an alarm for myself to remind myself every so often to get up, then I will do that, because sitting and doing this for too long, even if you are in that zen, in the zone and working away, you still need to take breaks. And even if you're telling yourself, just one more section, and then I'll be caught up. One more section. This is diamond painting, right? This is not world shattering. If you don't get something done, it's not the end of the world. Yes, something may take you longer. That's okay. It'll all work out. Tip number 2 that helped me, in addition to taking small breaks, was to set smaller goals for myself. So part of my problem with my diamond painting and my marathon sessions and my guilt is because I set goals for myself every year. Those are things that I talk about on the channel. I update you guys every month on how I've done, and it can be embarrassing sometimes if I don't make the goals, if I'm not productive in the way that I want to be. And this may not be something that most crafters deal with. This is because I have the YouTube channel and because I'm trying to hold myself accountable, that it can be frustrating. But even if I'm going to have a marathon session, I still need to have a stopping point. That's the other thing, right? If you really are in the zone or something like that, you still need to find that stopping place. And I'm very bad about just 5 more minutes, just one more section, whatever it is, just, right? It's easy to justify it to yourself. I'm gonna skip that break because that 5-minute break to stretch my legs is gonna mean I get another section done or something, which that's an exaggeration, but you get my point. So one of the things that I read was to set smaller goals and to break them up into chunks. So instead of sitting down and thinking to myself, okay, I'm just gonna diamond paint this marathon session, I'm gonna diamond paint until hubby is no longer watching TV, whatever the case may be, I'm not gonna do that way anymore, because that way leads to burnout. I am going to set incremental goals for myself. So I'm behind on this diamond painting. What do I want to accomplish in this first session, right? This session that I'm at, what do I want to do? Do I want to do 1 section? Do I want to try and shoot for 2 sections? Am I going to have enough time? Do I want to try and finish all of one color? Do I want to focus on working on the ABs? Whatever the incremental goal is, set one of those. And it has to be small, right? Something that you can achieve in the small time that you sit down to work on things. And then if you make it, reward yourself. One of the fun things about setting goals for yourself is giving yourself those rewards. So I sat down to diamond paint. I wanted to finish this 1 section. I've finished this section. Instead of continuing on, I'm going to get up. I'm going to step away and reward myself, whether that is by going out and taking a walk, whether that's making myself a cup of tea, reading a few pages of whatever book I'm reading, something like that. And then once I'm done and I'm mentally refreshed, I can come back. If I want to do another small session, complete another section, or whatever small goal it is that I've set for myself, then I can get that done. And I've hopefully avoided burning myself out. So tip number 3, and this has been a big one for me lately. I am your classic overthinker. If you can overthink it, I will do it. no matter what the subject is. One of the reasons that I was avoiding diamond painting was because we had so much going on, and because I'm dealing with so much change at the moment. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of trepidation over this big change that I've just made to my life. Regardless of whether you consider a change good or bad, there is still always, at least for me, that uncomfortableness that comes with the initial change, right? I think people just in general don't like change, even if it's something small and innocuous. I remember when I was working in an office, one of the things that we had to do was some exercise, and it was dealing with change. I think they were changing like our computer system or something. And so basically we had a day where everyone got assigned someone else's desk, and you went and moved something or changed something on their desk. And it could be something as simple as moving where the phone was. It could be rearranging things in their drawers. Nothing too outlandish, but just something to get changed. And then we were all challenged to experience that change and live with it for at least a day. It was not a popular exercise. There were lots of people who were very unhappy. I think mine was minimal, so it wasn't something that super bothered me, but it was just an irritation because, especially when you're talking about your workspace, you get used to where things are, and so having to relearn that can be very uncomfortable. And I had been avoiding diamond painting because diamond painting for the longest time for me was a place where I could find that zen or flow state. And then slowly, with all the uncertainty going on, it morphed into this not zen, not flow state where my brain just overthought everything. And so I would find myself avoiding it and doing something else because I didn't want to get stuck on that hamster wheel of my brain, to mix my metaphors, of my brain hopping on the crazy train. This hobby that's supposed to be relaxing and calming is instead just making me more anxious because it's given my brain the freedom to run away with itself. So one of the suggestions that I found, and one of the things that I've done, is that I have found other ways to occupy my brain. So instead of just sitting in a quiet room diamond painting, which was my typical how I would work, instead of doing that, I've found things to keep my brain focused on something in particular. So instead of my brain running away worrying about finding a new house, moving into the new house, all the things that have gone along with changing countries, all the paperwork, looking for employment, all of that kind of stuff. Instead of focusing on those things, I choose something to occupy my brain if I'm going to sit down for a diamond painting session. So my go-to these days has become a podcast. I have several different kinds of podcasts that I listen to. I listen to several D&D podcasts, people who are playing tabletop role-playing games. So I will listen to those. Listening to the characters interact and things like that takes my mind off of whatever current worry is rumbling around in my brain. I have my iPad set up so that if I'm reading a book, I have text-to-speech on so that it can read the book to me so that I can be concentrating on the book and whatever's happening to the characters rather than focusing on whatever problem or issue my brain thinks is the thing of the day. And that has been very helpful. So whether it's books, whether it's music, whether it's a podcast, whatever it may be, if you can find something like that to occupy your brain and maybe help you avoid a little bit of that burnout, that overthinking that's causing you to avoid an activity that you previously found very pleasurable. Our brains get conditioned to things like Pavlov's dog. So I didn't want to get into a headspace where I was avoiding diamond painting because I didn't want to spend all that time overthinking and just wearing myself down mentally. And it's been very helpful. Like I said, having something to focus on. I used to just listen to the television, but I actually find putting in my headphones and kind of being forced to focus on, because when I'm watching TV, you can still hear all the ambient noise and everything. Whereas if I put my headphones in, then I can ignore a lot of the other noise that's going on in the room. Also, that makes it a little bit easier because I don't always have the luxury of being someplace where nobody else is. So just finding ways to occupy my brain was a great help. Tip number 4 is also one that I really needed help with. And tip number 4 for dealing with burnout is choosing projects that speak to you. And again, this goes back to me because I create goals for the channel. I feel an obligation to keep up with those goals as much as I can because I report back on them every month. So it's not just that I need the video content. I mean, whether I make the goals or not, I would have the video content, but just personally having to make a video where I said, well, I didn't meet this and I didn't meet that and I didn't meet this and I didn't meet that was a bit demoralizing and not what I wanted to do. So like I said, I would end up doing these marathon sessions to try and get caught up, which just made the burnout worse. And one of the things was, because I've set these goals for myself, I have a list of kits or projects that I want to work on. And there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes you just aren't feeling it, right? Maybe this was a kit that you were super gung-ho about when you bought it. And now, because it's been sitting in your stash for a year or more, when you pull it out with the best of intentions, I'm going to work on this, I'm going to get this one done, it just leaves you feeling flat. I've had that happen to me, and I just force myself to work through it, which is a mistake because, again, it just leads to that overall feeling of dissatisfaction. It's not a kit that's particularly speaking to me. It's not something I particularly want to work on, and I'm already kind of feeling burnt out and under the gun, and now I'm forcing myself to work on a project that I'm not really feeling. I know I've seen comments from lots of people, especially when you're working on a big project like my Josephine wall or just something very big, very confetti heavy, whatever the case may be, that for whatever reason, it just becomes kind of this mental drain. And I've had lots of people say, well, I'm not really feeling this one, but I want to push through and finish it. Pushing through sometimes just makes that feeling of burnout worse. So what I have tried to do, even within the context of my goals, is to look at my goals and say, okay, I wanted to work on this kit, I plan to work on this kit, but when I go to pull it out, it's like, ugh, I'm not feeling this one. So rather than telling myself, no, just do it, just get through it, you'll feel better when it's done, I have said, okay, because I'm already dealing with burnout and I don't want to make it any worse, I'm going to go back. What's a different kit that I could work on that maybe won't make me feel so burnt out? And I did a lot of larger kits last year. The Josephine wall was a big kit. My gingerbread lighthouse was big. I did my 5 oldest kits. Most of those were pretty big size kits. Doing all of those larger kits just, I think, led to a lot of the burnout. That not only was I trying to do a lot of these things in the middle of a very hectic personal life, but they were just big projects to begin with, and I wasn't feeling them, and I did them anyway, and that just made things worse. So this year, even though I have goals set and I have projects I want to do, there are things that I'm like, okay, I really want to start this one right now, but I'm going to hold off on that for whatever reason. I have a very large heaven and earth design project that I want to start. I'm waiting until we are in the new house and I have more space, because I know it would just make me crazy right now with the way my crafting space is set up if I tried to do a big project like that now. Even though I really want to start it and I'm kind of gung-ho to work on it, I know it would just frustrate me to start it right now, so I'm holding off on that. And in the same way, there are some kits that I'm like, well, I intended to do this one, but I could do this other one instead. I'm really feeling this one. I had, say, Benedict Blue on my schedule, but I'm really feeling my Close Encounters kit, and that one is speaking to me way more. I'm going to go ahead and just work on my Close Encounters kit, because then I'm working on something that speaks to me at the moment. That doesn't mean I can't go back and work on the Benedict Blue at some point. That doesn't mean that I'm abandoning that project completely. It just means that I'm saying right now is not the best time for me to work on it. I'm going to focus my attention on something that really speaks to me and brings me joy. I'm going to Marie Kondo my diamond painting. So that was tip number 4. Tip number 5 is the biggest one, and I think it's the biggest one for me, I guess I should say, because of my personal situation. So we have been in this rental, and while the rental has been great, it was a furnished rental, which was awesome because we did not bring furniture and things with us really. So having everything kind of at our fingertips and basically just having to buy groceries has been wonderful. However, that means that we didn't really have room for any of the furniture that we did bring, like my diamond painting table, like a computer desk, like all the accessories and things that I brought with me for my diamond painting, my spare drill storage, my kit storage, all of that good stuff. Which means we've just kind of had to shove things in spaces where they would fit, whether it made any rhyme or reason for them to go there or not. So we have a printer and a file cabinet in the living room. I have a storage shelving unit with all of my diamond paintings in the kitchen. Various other things are spaced around in closets and cupboards, and I'm kind of dreading when we do move because I've got to go through everything and make sure that I don't miss something that we've shoved somewhere because that was the only space available. So because I don't have a true dedicated crafting space like I used to, that has been difficult for me. I just need kind of a dedicated space. Even though I would spend a lot of my crafting time at our old house out in the living room with my husband, I still had a dedicated space in the office in a second bedroom where I had my spare drill storage, my stash stored, anything extra, all of my office stuff was in there. So all of those things kind of had a home of their own, and since we've moved, that has not been the case. So it's yet another change and just something that makes it kind of mentally wearing, which has resulted in that feeling of burnout. And I, again, don't want to complain. It's not the amount of space, because I know there are lots of people who craft very happily in very small spaces. It's more a fact that it's not my space, so there are limited things that I can do with it, and that has resulted in me kind of avoiding some of the work that I want to do because it just isn't as comfortable as I want it to be. So tip number 5, if I didn't state it before, was that I need to create a welcoming crafting space. And I have made a few changes since we got here to make it a little more suitable for myself. It's still not exactly the way that I want, but it is better. And some of the other things that I'm doing as well, taking breaks, setting small goals, choosing projects that speak to me, all of those things are helping me to deal with the burnout as well. It's not gone completely, but it is better. So I'm going to take that as a win. So doing the research, trying to figure out things that I could do to help me with my feelings of burnout, there are lots of other things that can contribute to your burnout. And that includes trying to do more projects than you really can handle, putting more on your plate than you should, trying to make everything perfect, like those of us who spend way too much time trying to straighten our drills so that they're perfectly aligned and whatnot. And also neglecting yourself, just physically. Check in with yourself. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you drinking enough water? Are you spending time with friends and family? Are you spending time outdoors? Are there other things as far as self-care that maybe you need to spend some time on to find that joy again in your crafting? So those were my 5 tips. Those are things that I've done. Again, take what works for you, leave what doesn't. If you've experienced burnout before and you have a tip that I didn't mention that has worked for you, please leave a comment down below. I would love to know what you've done to try and get yourself out of a crafting slump. I think one of the best things we can do is have some sort of community, like in the Facebook group. If you're in there and you have questions or concerns, feel free to ask in there. If somebody can help, they will. I'm not always the best about getting in there every day, but I do try to look at all the posts, and if I can throw in any of my 2 cents, I will do that as well. But 90% of the time, you guys take care of each other and have the right answers for somebody before I get in there. And I think that's amazing. Having people to lean on when you're dealing with burnout is one of the most helpful things, I think. That's it for me today, guys. Thanks so much for sticking around till the end of the video. I hope you found some of it helpful. Before you leave, don't forget to do all the things. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and hit that bell notification icon so that you can be informed of future uploads. And as always, guys, thanks so much for watching.